Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment comes from David M, and this one is in response to new toys please, an SMR I did in February 2022. And David writes, thank you for an interesting trip down memory lane. I remember the Boss rack modules. Yeah, they're all sitting down there. Waiting for me to video them. I've never had any modules. The KAWAI module I think a friend had. I was lucky enough to find a KAWAI XS module. I think that's what it's called, for the sum of £5 while buying a vintage bass guitar. Also £5. I think the person was eager to lose both of them. Not sure if the GM was, if it was GM, but pretty basic sounds. I like the trend soft synths, but the old and new hardware is more hands-on and tactile. I'm looking forward to the release of the two Behringer mini-sized synths announced in the last few days. £50 and £100 could be great gear or steaming pile of brown stuff. We shall see. Now, many years ago, when I was a young man, sounds like Jack and Ori, doesn't it? Once upon a time, in a land far away, called West London. Yes. Anyway, when I was younger, the Boss micro rack stuff was really appealing, but I can't tell you why I never purchased it. Probably I didn't have the money, I suspect. That's the bottom line with me not purchasing equipment when I was younger, was the fact that it was a case of, did I need it? Could I justify it? Well, as you get older, you can justify more things because you have more money. But when you're younger, you struggle to justify things. It's, you know, do I put? You know, I can remember having the conversation: do I put petrol in the car, or do I go out for the evening or something like that? But when you're training, you know, yes, you get paid a fairly decent amount, but you're working very hard. And not I'm saying everybody doesn't work very hard, but you tend to work very long hours when you work for accountancy firms. Or legal professions. Probably lawyers work longer than accountants do, I must admit. But you tend to work very long hours, and you get your pay, and you either go and have a drink with your friends when you finish work, or you buy synthesizers. And unfortunately, quite often going and having a drink at the end of the night, end of the day, was probably a better idea. Anyway. In terms of the KAWAI stuff, I've heard the mixer reviews. I've heard mixed reviews over the years. I've got to be honest, but I am reserving judgment on this KAWAI unit until I've actually done a little bit more research about the KAWAI units, and got this unit back within up to operational standards without sneezing the amount of dust that's on it. I've got to be honest and say I actually have done the research on the KAWAI units, and you know, typically with these things, you know, the K1 wasn't the first. They started with a different K number, and the K1 was like something like third in the series. But you know, I always find that quite amusing. They start with a higher number and then work their way backwards, and they start stripping out functionality. And anyway, the other thing I'm not really sure about the Behringer budget synths. A couple of days ago, they announced the UBX D, which is the sort of desk rack module of the UBXA. Now that will be a dilemma for me because I quite like the idea of the keyboard, but actually the desktop module without the keys, and I've got enough keyboards to drive it, so that really will potentially be quite a dilemma for me, because do I go for the keyed version or do I go for the unkeyed version? At the moment, it's a bit of a rhetorical question because neither of them have been launched. So, so I'm not going for any of them at the moment because you can't buy them. Anyway, good question. The next comment or question comes from Redcliffe BTS in response to backup and restore patches on the Roland System-1, a video I did in September 2020. That's as difficult as it becomes. Correction, my PC doesn't see the System-1 even after drivers are installed. Everything goes the way it looks you show, but no folder drive and no Windows notification has been connected. So I guess it all becomes way more difficult. Right. This just highlights a problem with the whole driver situation. If the computer doesn't like the drivers, then it can become a real pain. But if you're in this situation, here's what I would do generically. Firstly, I would uninstall the driver software from the programs page, reboot the PC following the uninstallation to allow it fully clear up any uninstallation files, and then try reinstalling the application. But rather than just double clicking on the application, right click and choose Run As, and then run as the administrator, not run as you, because it's possibly that you've set your account up on your machine as a user with not full administration rights, and you might want the drivers maybe trying to do an installation of something that it's not allowed to do, and therefore doesn't get the right privileges and therefore won't run properly. That's the first thing I would do. So as I said, you're ensuring the driver has correctly registered. The other thing to be mindful of is when you're going through this process, watch out for pop-ups. Any security messages that might pop up, you might have to do an additional step depending on how your PC is configured. So you might have to, typically the firewall or antivirus is blocking your machine from running the software or running the driver correctly, which is part of the software. If this is the case, you need to go into the firewall or antivirus software and find the list of allowed and blocked programs and make sure that you add the drivers to the allowed or blocked list, depending on how your machine is configured. Each antivirus and firewall will work, of course, slightly differently. Microsoft works slightly differently to McAfee, or Microsoft Defender works differently to McAfee and Norton and whoever else is on the virus market this week. And the firewall that you've got installed, be it a firewall from the antivirus supplier or whether it be the Microsoft firewall, they all work slightly differently. So I can't say how you would do it. I'm just giving you a sort of generic hint of this is what I probably would do. And most of the time, it's if it's not running properly, it's not installed properly, or the antivirus and the firewall are stopping it from running. That typically is what happens. So you have to effectively tell the antivirus and the firewall and the security system on your machine that this program is a good program and can run.